In the summer of 2016, my friend Chris called, and he asked if I was sitting down. Well, it had been 2 days since my prostate biopsy, so I said, nope, not yet. I should explain that Chris and I are both surgeons, and where I take care of kids, Chris, the urologist, he was taking care of me. I should further explain that a prostate biopsy is a procedure which I believe to be the origin of every alien abduction probing story ever told. But Chris was using his serious voice when he said, listen, Ron, you have cancer. And I thought back to a lecture in medical school that said, prostate cancer grows so slowly that most older men die with it, not from it. And he said, true, but at 55, you're not old, and your cancer looks pretty aggressive. We need to talk about surgery. I said, okay, we can chat about that when I get home, next month, because I was heading overseas to do a surgical trip. The cancer thing had to wait. Well, a couple of months later, I'm lying on the operating table, and Chris puts his hand on my shoulder, and he says, here's the good news. Once we get that prostate out of the way, you are going to pee like you were 15 again. So I whispered back, years or months? When I woke up, Chris and my wife were at the bedside, and Colleen had been crying. And Chris explained that there was more cancer in there than we thought there'd be. We need to talk about adding radiation. And I said, okay, we can chat about that. When I'm feeling better, I just lost part of my body, and taking care of kids helps me feel whole. So as soon as the catheter was out, I went back to work. But the good news, the PSA, the blood marker looking for cancer cells, had gone to 0. Apparently, I was cured for 9 months. When it started to rise, that's when I met the radiation oncologist, a nice man who explained the 7 weeks of daily radiation combined with injectable Lupron, a hormone blocker that he said might make me feel kind of sick. And then he asked if I had questions. I had 2. Could I take my treatment first thing so I could get back to work right after? And then the second, this cancer thing, is this what's going to kill me? And he said, oh, life's unpredictable, Ron. I mean, you could get hit by a bus walking in the parking lot. And as a surgeon who's taken care of people hit by buses, that option was not very appealing. So every day when I pulled into that lot, I looked both ways. And the radiation techs, they would gently lie me on this table underneath this really monstrous-looking machine. And they were always very kind, and before they'd hightail it out of that room behind the foot-thick lead-lined door, they'd offer up something positive like, you're doing great, which was funny, because from where I was laying, great was on their side of the door. And then a switch would flip and the machine would spin and scream for a couple of terrifying minutes, and then it would stop. It never hurt, but I remembered crying the first couple of times in my surgical scrubs on the wrong side of that door. And then I'd get up and I'd go to work. Well, my PSA went back to 0 for 2 years. When it started to rise and the cancer had gone to my lymph nodes, that's when I met the medical oncologist, another nice man who was staring at his clipboard when he said, well, you have stage 4 cancer. At this point, the average life expectancy, even with treatment, is 4.5 years. Do you have any questions? I had 2. The first was, do you have a different clipboard? And the second, so you're telling me this is going to kill me? And he says, and I shit you not, oh, you never know. I mean, you could be crossing the street. As if there is an oncology training manual that says, when things are looking bleak, cheer them up with a good bus story. They tried another round of radiation, but my PSA kept climbing faster and faster. I'd have to go back on treatment. And so in February of 2022, after 30 years, I packed up my practice and I retired. And then something crazy happened. the PSA stopped climbing. It's as if I had drove a stake in the ground between the old life and the new, less stressed life, and my body was able to fight the cancer back to a stalemate. And in this last 2 years, I've been feeling great. I've continued my work overseas, and I've published a novel. And I've learned to live life in these 3-month windows between blood draws, not in little boxes, but open to the whole crazy shit pile that life really is. And for that, I am grateful. For what came before and whatever comes next, I am so grateful. Because this new life, it's better than the bus. Thank you.